So this time of the year, the sun now moved on into another part of the sky from our perspective here, with the backdrop of hexagram number 26. So right up at the top of the wheel here, we're right next to that green one there, the number 11, just to the right of it, the gateway number 26. We're in this eighth, or this area of the wheel that we relate to the pagan festival Samhain, the festival of, what can I say, the absolute abundance of all the harvest that's taken place in the northern hemisphere here. A lot of energy, a lot of power in this part of the wheel, because the bottom trigram for each of these hexagrams is creative. It's Chen, it's heaven, it's solid, solid, solid. It's pure yang energy. And the 26 on the top has the symbol or the trigram for mountain, stillness. So we have the mountain on top of this tremendous creative energy. And the 26 is the gateway. It has been called in the traditional Chinese description of the taming power of the great. A lot of energy in there, and it's in the Human Design Center, it's in the Willpower Center. So it's all about values. And the 26 quintessentially is the gateway of sales. What holds value? What can be conveyed into other people's lives that might hold value for them? And so a lot of energy here. And I prefer to call the gate accumulation. It's accumulation of resources in a sense, or the sense of what it is that's going to further people's lives. When you look into the human design system and you look at the willpower center, that little triangle in the middle of the chart, there's only 4 gateways in there. And the number of people that have this center colored in or defined, or let's just say have a consistency and an attunement to what holds value for them in life, is about 30%. So which means 70% of people don't have the willpower or don't have a consistency in the sense of what holds value for them. And necessarily people go chasing after all kinds of things that really hold no value for them whatsoever. So the 26 is placed in the chart in a position where it can offer it. It's the gateway of sales. It can convince people you really need to have this in your life. And so there can be a little bit of a balance in terms of, taming power of the great, you must have this. Or is it just, well, this is something that's going to be worthwhile for you. It's going to actually benefit me more by selling it to you than it is for you to have it. So little bit of a consequence in here. So we have this personal life theme of rulership, and people with this life theme, it's quite clear they tend to rule the world around them. They have this means of connecting into resources, the money thing through the 45 on the other side where the earth sits. 45, this gateway, the voice of the tribe, the voice of we have or we don't have, this voice of gathering together, join with me in this thing. And it's quite clear in the tribe, it's all or nothing. Everybody's on board. If there's any dissenters, they have to remove themselves. They have to go somewhere else. They have to join some other community or some other situation. So the 26 up there in this particular wheel showing in the green there, accumulation, possession in great measure. So on the unconscious side of things, the 47 is a gateway of making sense out of things. And the 47 always has this kind of historical perspective, what's worked in the past and what is, does it correspond with what we're doing now? And then the 22, where the unconscious earth places itself, the gateway of grace, is this interaction, this rulership taking place through a sense of grace. Now, I know perfectly well people that have this 22 in their design, on a physical level, they carry a certain degree of grace with them. They look graceful. And they have that possibility always of being gracious as well. Of course, grace also has the opposite side, the disgrace. And so there's something about rulership. We look back over time and we see people that have been in charge, or maybe even people in these days that are in charge. And are they being gracious? Do they even have that connection to what it means to be gracious in their life? Are they working on the basis of what's worked in the past? Are they all for themselves, taming power of the great, I'm in a position now to take advantage, I am in the role of the king or the queen or whatever. Or am I, acknowledged by the people around me, I'm very gracious. And that is part of my rulership. That is part of how I hold everyone in balance here. And I keep offering things that are worthwhile for the community as the responsible one, as the one who can see what it is that holds potential value for people. And it's not just about money. It's not just about property and possessions. It's about recognizing, rulership carries with it a tremendous responsibility for people, for bringing people up to speed in their life in terms of their environment, of their living situation, of their education, and all of this. People with this particular life theme, Osho, the extraordinary mystic from India, Taylor Swift, this quite unusual musician and star of the world, and also this man you may not have heard about, Sir Philip Sidney. I would definitely recommend, if you're into history, have a look at this man. He died young, but my goodness, the accomplishments that he had in his short lifespan and the education that he did. He actually founded the school where I went to school in England, and I have to say it's an extraordinary institution. The sun moves on, it goes on to the fourth line, and we have the fixed life theme of, I call procuring, how to draw resources to you, taming power the great. The 45 again is this gathering together, so that it's grounded in a material bedrock there, if that is possible. And the thing about the fourth line is it has to be very clear that the offerings it put out are in integrity, that it doesn't get involved in nefarious dealings as much as can be done, because now the unconscious sun has gone into gateway number 6, this gateway of conflict resolution, this gateway of friction. That every creative act in life has a little bit of a friction to it. The whole creative process needs friction sometimes to be able to birth something new. The unconscious earth has gone into the 36, this gateway, I call it crisis resolution, or the darkening of the light, when you're faced with something you've never dealt with before. How do you resolve it? Do you kind of stay on the edge worrying about it, or do you take that first step and be involved? Because crisis, actually, when you trace the Greek, means coming to a decision, making a decision, and the decision is obviously to step forward. But the whole thing here is, are you stepping forward in integrity? So we've also given this particular fixed life theme the theme of the trickster, in that people with this life theme, they can very easily manipulate or take advantage of other people's situations. And I'm not saying everybody does, provided it's done in fun or, done with a generous spirit, then all kinds of great things can happen. But definitely people with this life theme, very, very capable in terms of business. The life theme moves on into the life theme we call confrontation. And here we're in the 5th and 6th lines of the 26, 5th and 6th lines of the 45. So necessarily in these 5th and 6th lines, there's a degree of more responsibility here. Again, the unconscious sun in the 6th, the conflict resolution, the unconscious earth in the 36, crisis resolution. And so we know with these interpersonal life themes, they can be very capable at resolving issues for everybody. 5th lines get caught up in rescuing people if they're not careful. 6th lines have the overview of all that's possible with it. So confrontation is a very interesting word. It can be taken at least 2 different ways. There's the confrontation where you're absolutely in somebody's face. I'm not going to let you get away with that. There can be a real ego energy in here, a real push from the 26. I'm going to get my way, whatever. Don't mess with me. That kind of confrontation. Or it can be this kind of more objective view. I recognize everything that's going on in this situation, the potential for conflict, the potential for crisis, that people are not getting their needs met, they feel out of balance, they're not being represented, they're not receiving what they need in their life to feel that life is honoring them and being substantial for them. They're not getting their wishes met. And so the confrontation can look at all of this and say, I can fix it, I can resolve it, I can make this whole thing work. And in my experience, people with this life theme, they're in this balance between having these fierce interactions and confrontations, active argument with people. But on the other side, just kind of the very laid back, I can deal with this, not an issue, not a problem. So definitely a very particular life theme here. People with this, the ex-Brazilian president, Dilma Rousseff, who got in a lot of trouble, dealing with, what can I say, Brazilian problems. I lived there for a while. Brazil is unique. I love the place, but also, it has some things about it that just, you can't make everybody happy. There are little Brazilianaires and everybody else. Somebody else who has this is Michael Owen. If you ever watch soccer, and this Newcastle United player, Genius, genius, in these fast-moving games in soccer in England. Also, Paddy Duke, you may have heard about, a star from the 60s and 70s on TV, just a very extraordinary presence there, and won an Oscar for her performances in film. So, confrontation, how do you deal with situations? And all of us are going to be put into this space as the sun goes through here. We're likely to be dealt with things that we're not used to dealing with. What do we do? How do we resolve crisis? By making a step in it. And the more balanced we can be in our lives while we make that kind of a step, the better. All of these 192 life themes in great detail are written up in the Book of Destinies. Your life is in there. Your whole family's life theme are in there. So maybe something fascinating to look over around the Thanksgiving table. This is all part of the Human Design trilogy. These books tell you soup to nuts, everything you need to know about human design on a practical basis, how to make this system come into your world and work for you, how to live a very full and enriched life. There we are for this time. See you next time around.